year one for Randy Winn. You are here at the Winter Meetings, so I assume you're signing up for year two. But I want to take you back a full year. This is completely different for you. You're in charge of a farm system now. What was it like?
It was great. I had a lot of fun being around Buster. Obviously, Buster hired me, coming in with a guy that shares a lot of the same thoughts about the game of baseball, how it should be played, how you should win games, what your goals are, how you develop players. It made my job easy. And I tell people my job is like all the stuff that you see or read or hear Buster talk about in interviews, whether it's situational hitting or winning ball games or wanting to win championship. Those are the same things we're talking about in the minor leagues. And, the how of that, you watch Buster's championship teams like we all did. And I mean, that's the how. It's being a good teammate. It's running the bases hard. It's situational hitting. It's pitching, defense. So for me, that's easy. Like that to me, that's the fun stuff, or fun part of baseball is talking about the little details that help you win ball games.
What was the biggest thing for you that you realized changed since your time in the minor leagues? So like the way these guys are doing it now.
Yeah. How long do we have?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Part of it makes me feel like I played in the dark ages, but let's start with this. Like the minor leagues as a whole is just a larger operation, from the number of coaches to strength and training, strength and conditioning, physical therapists, medical, biomechanics, analytics. Like we have all these departments that now play a role in player development, a big role in terms of like analyzing players and making players bigger and stronger and faster, better versions of themselves. Like I didn't have that. It was, on my minor league team, we had a manager, a pitching coach, a hitting coach, and a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Who also was the trainer, traveling secretary. My first call up, my trainer drove me 2.5 hours to the airport. Like that was part of his job. So we've grown. So the number of people that influence and touch the players on a daily basis has changed. And so that kind of influences my job in making sure that we're all on the same page, that the messaging's the same, that we're all working and pulling in the same direction.
I was reading a story about like top prospects on the flight over here, and it's not talking about even their home runs or their OPS. It's like this guy's 90th percentile exit velocity, this guy's stuff plus. How has it been getting into that stuff? Because I know you've seen a lot of the way the game has changed, but the way prospects are evaluated now, like you'll see a guy get traded and you look at his ERA and it's like, well, no, but the stuff plus is really good on him. How has that impacted what you do?
It impacts it daily because we have people that look at those numbers and that information daily. I think all that's great. I think it gives you a deeper dive, a better big picture of the player. But, the bottom line, it's about scoring runs and getting outs. And if you're not able to do that, then it's going to be hard to do that at the major leagues. But, you talked about the underlying numbers. Part of the player in me likes that because it's like, oh, well, maybe you didn't have a great year in terms of like average, but look at all this other stuff that he's doing to impact the game. So I think from that perspective, I think it gives you a better sense and a bigger picture on the player. But, the bottom line is still the bottom line. We're trying to score runs. We're trying to prevent runs. And we want players that are able to do those things.
I talked to Buster about this at the trade deadline because I looked around at the draft and kind of the trade pieces, and basically everybody was a back control guy, a guy who was hit for average.
You're seeing a pattern? Is that what you're saying, Alex?
What kind of pattern are we going to see coming through the minor league system? And, the big league team is pretty strikeout heavy and could use some of these guys who maybe put the ball in play more.
The game is strikeout heavy. Being able to control the strike zone has been such a big part of the game from the offensive and defensive side. And I think what we're trying to do, and it's no secret, I think you look at our park and the types of players that have been successful in our park and the types of teams that have been successful, throughout the time that our park's been there, you got to be able to control the strike zone on both sides of the ball. So from the pitching standpoint, it's guys that throw strikes. And from the hitting standpoint, it's guys that don't strike out a ton. You're not going to strike out zero. That's impossible. The game's hard enough. But being able to control the strike zone, if you look at this year's World Series, Toronto Blue Jays had a chance to win it all, run on third, less than 2. And that's a situation where you don't want to strike out. Obviously the pitcher's nasty. He's throwing hard and got a great slider, but being able to put the bat on the ball is extremely important. It's always been. And so I think Buster recognizes that, and it's having a balance. It's you can't have every player play like Randy Winn. You can't have every player play like Buster Posey. Maybe you want every player like Buster
That'd be
Posey.
great.
That would be great. But as I tell Buster, he wasn't the fastest guy, although he fights me on that. But I think the point is you have to have a balance, right? You want guys that are contact guys. You want guys that are power guys. And so to be able to do those things, you have to be able to put the bat on the ball, whether you have power or whether you have speed.
I know, having sat with you in studio, one thing that was important to you is just, making sure guys are moved at the right pace. And we saw, even Bryce doesn't get called up until the very end of the season. I got asked constantly by Giants fans about some of the guys in the lower minors, like Dakota, who's tearing up A-ball. It was very deliberate. I know there's some injuries there as well, but what did that end up looking like in terms of making sure these guys get the right amount of time before getting that promotion?
That proved to be a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I think the restructuring of the minor leagues, I won't go deep into that, but that's played on how fast, how slow you can move guys, not having the short season A-ball team where it's a soft landing spot for guys out of the draft. But I think it's all about reps. I don't understand how you get better at anything without reps. And, industry-wide, guys have started moving faster and faster. I don't know that that's best for everybody. I think that, if you can play it slow while the guys are younger, when they're more malleable, when they need more reps, and, when you can talk to a guy at low A and say, hey, I know you're having a great year, but, this is something that we see that, is going to help you down the road. Making that adjustment when the kid is younger and having a great year is easier than waiting till, maybe the kid's at AA or AAA and they're drowning, you're underwater. It's very difficult when you've gone 1 for 20 for a guy to come up and say, hey, why don't we make this adjustment? You're like, listen, I'm just trying to survive out here. So that plays a part in it, is trying to make the adjustments without changing kind of the DNA of the player. That's the delicate balance that everybody who's walking behind us now is trying to figure out. But, I believe it's all about reps. And so we've been intentionally not moving guys quite as fast, just so that, we want guys to have some success too, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, I don't think it does our system any good to say, oh, look at all of our prospects have been moved up when all the prospects are struggling. I think you're a better system when guys are having success. They're moving maybe a little bit slower.
I think it was like May where I woke up and Carson Wisenhunt's throwing 7 innings every time out. And I looked at some other game logs with like Trevor McDonald. And I'm like, oh, guys are allowed to throw 6 or 7 innings again, which was not, Kyle Harrison's thrown 3 2/3 every time out. And then he gets called up 2 years ago. Were you happy with what you were able to do in that department, just making sure that some of these guys got more innings under their belt?
Yeah, once again, it's reps. How are you going to learn how to control the zone as a pitcher, command your stuff if you don't have enough reps to learn how to succeed and fail and try again over and over? And so it wasn't necessarily about, all right, Carson Wisenhunt, at spring training, all right, here you go, throw 100 pitches. Like, it was very intentionally thought out by our pitching group, and medical was on board with how do we build guys up so that they are in a position to be able to go deeper in ball games. Because, the reality is my job is to get guys ready for the final exam. The final exam is the big leagues. And so if you are a 1, 2, 3, 4 starter, you can look it up. Like, the numbers show what the expectations are in terms of innings, in terms of pitches, what these guys are throwing. And so my job, our job in PD, is to get the Wisenhunts and the Seymours from last year ready, that when they get called up, they can step in and have an opportunity to be successful. So a lot of thought went into it. It wasn't just guys are going to throw more. And I thought we did a really nice job in building our pitchers up from a starting pitcher standpoint. I thought we did a really nice job in terms of injury prevention. Doing it where guys weren't just overthrowing and hurting themselves. That was also a big part of it that got a lot of time and attention and discussion. And I was really happy with the way that went.
One guy I think we're going to be talking about a lot on our podcast and just in general the next couple of years is Joshua Gonzalez. What was your first impression? He had a great year in the Dominican, but your first impression of just him as a player?
The first time I laid eyes on him, it's impressive. The way he fields a ground ball, which sounds silly, like, that's usually not exciting, but I watched him field a ground ball and I sat up a little bit. I was like, wait a minute, that was pretty impressive. the kid has tremendous raw ability. He's super young. He's got speed. He's got defense. He's got some bat to ball. Got a little bit of power. We don't want him to focus on that right now. But we really think highly of him. He was well thought of, obviously, when we signed him. He had a really good year down in the DSL. I believe he was named the top prospect in the DSL, stole 30-something bases, is basically able to impact the game in more than one way. He impacts it with his bat. He impacts it when he's on first base. Pitchers have to think about him. He's able to steal. He goes first to third. He's a very exciting player. And then defensively, showed some real maturity, has a good sense for the game in terms of like game clock, made some really impressive defensive plays. So very exciting kid with a lot in front of him.
So many of these guys get signed as shortstops, and everyone's a shortstop when they're that age. But it seems like with him, he's pretty special just defensively over there. Is that what you've seen just in the reps?
I mean, once again, he's 16, 17 years old, but, you know, I wouldn't see any reason why he wouldn't be able to remain a shortstop. You know, I think if you look at Little League, generally the best players, they pitch and play shortstop. I don't think that's any different in international signing, but he is definitely, he looks the part.
Just in general, you guys have a pretty strong class of international guys coming through, even pitching Kayama and Martinez. And like, how do you handle that group and make sure, because there hasn't been a lot of success other than Pablo the last couple of decades and Camilo Doval, you know, Randy Rodriguez, there's a few guys, but in general, some of those guys haven't succeeded. How do you look at maybe the cases of the guys who haven't succeeded and make sure that with these 17, 18, 19-year-olds, you guys handle it the correct way?
Yeah, well, I really can't comment on how those classes were developed. I obviously wasn't around, but I don't think we do it any different than the kids that we sign here out of the U.S. I think you do it carefully. I think you look at each and every player individually and try to make them the best versions of themselves. I think we do a pretty good job of coming up with individual player plans in terms of what do we want Joshua to look like at 16, 17, 18. It's not an exact science. Sometimes the kids take huge leaps forward at that age. You know, guys can put on a bunch of weight or, you know, and gain strength, and your bodies are changing. Like, I mean, when you're talking about DSL signs, we basically bring them in. They're 16-year-old kids, little boys, and then a couple of years, like, oh my gosh, this guy's a young man. And so you can't always predict that jump, but I think you do it carefully. I think you do it intentionally, and I think you do it case-by-case basis. So, you know, when we're talking about Joshua, who's, you know, speed and defense, he could change into something else, but that's different than a guy like Bryce Eldridge, right? You're not going to have the same plan. And so whether we're talking international signs or signs out of the draft, I think you just have to be intentional and look at everybody individually.
I'll finish with two guys who I get asked about a lot, Bo Davidson and Dakota Jordan. I know both of them are flying up prospect lists. What do you like about those two in particular, and what their future might look like?
Yeah, I'll jump somewhere and then I'll come back. I don't know that I love prospect lists. I mean, I understand why we do it. I understand that, you know, when it moves up or when we move up, it looks good for our organization. But I think sometimes it puts unnecessary pressure on guys when you have these expectations to say, oh, Bo Davidson is the next, or Dakota Jordan is the next, when in reality, they are just the first versions of themselves. Yeah. And so with all that, I'll say two really good players, two guys we're really excited about. I'll start with Dakota. He was well on his way to being probably the player of the year in the California League. He was having that type of season on a team that was playing outstanding. He was the glue. He was hitting third on that team. He played center field, has some really good leadership qualities, very physically gifted, did a really nice job in all the things that I started this interview off talking about: situational hitting, putting the ball in play, controlling the zone, running the bases. He hit for average, he hit for power, he stole bases, and kind of like Joshua, was able to impact the game on both sides of the ball, played a really good center field. Really, really gifted. We're really excited about it. We're excited for him to be healthy. He is healthy. He's having a good offseason. We're excited for him to come in next year and hopefully replicate and build on what he did last year. Bo Davidson, left-hand hitter. The ball comes off his bat differently. You hear about that maybe in golf, you're walking down the range, or in baseball, you're walking past the cage and you hear a sound. That's how the ball comes off Bo's bat. Center fielder, didn't steal a ton of bases, hit leadoff and third this year. We're hoping that he can become a little bit more aggressive on the base pass. That's something I talked to him about. But in terms of like controlling the zone, making a difference with his bat, making a difference with his glove, really had a good year. And he was a guy that came in as undrafted. And so he's really had to work and put up numbers and improve each and every year for this recognition that he's gotten. I think that's well deserved, but there's still more to go for both those guys, and not in a bad way. Like I said, we're not trying to be the best A-ball versions of them. We're trying to be the best versions of who they are, and we think that there's more in the tank for both of those guys.
All right, Randy, we miss you on TV, but it's great being able to get your thoughts.
I did not pay you to say that, but
I'm sure at like 11 o'clock at night when you're watching the postgame, sometimes you're like, I'm all right. But
sometimes I think about calling in. I was like, you know what? I'm watching Alex. I should probably call in.
We'll call you about the prospects, but thank you for going so deep on some of these guys. I know Giants fans are pretty excited about the group that's coming ahead. So
yeah, absolutely.